How 10 roles turned old Hollywood actors into gods. Do you remember when a face could quiet a theater before a word was spoken? Before computers painted skies, men had to feel 10 feet tall. The camera did the measuring. A low angle, a held breath, brass rising like a tide. That's how ordinary mortals became screen gods. By posture, by voice, by carrying a nation, a faith, or a rebellion on their shoulders without flinching. If you grew up timing your week by the movie pages and the TV guide, you know this feeling in your bones. We weren't watching costumes, we were watching conviction. A staff raised into wind, a jaw that didn't move when the room did. Real sets, real crowds, sand that stuck to ankles and stayed there after the credits. Tonight, we count 10 roles that turned men into monuments. Not gossip, craft. Not trivia, presence. We'll talk about the moments that froze you. A chariot wheel biting dust. A decree spoken so softly the walls obeyed. A strong man who learned strength wasn't the point. Lock your number 1 now. Don't overthink it. Then stay with me. If you believe size lives in muscle and crowns, then watch what happens when doubt makes a man larger than stone. Number 10. Edmund Purdom as Sinuhe, the Egyptian, 1954. Some giants roar. Sinuhe thinks, and the room gets quieter. Edmund Purdom wasn't a marquee colossus, but in this role, he wears something rarer than armor, a mind at war with itself. We meet a physician who can touch a pharaoh, yet can't find his own footing. Titans aren't always the men who lift stones. Sometimes they're the ones who lift a question and hold it steady in both hands. If you saw this on a Saturday broadcast, you remember the feel. Lamplight, skimming carved walls, hieroglyphs turning into a chorus while Purdom keeps his voice level, his breathing measured. The camera helps. Modest lenses near eyeline, no showy sweeps. So thinking looks risky. He stands half in shadow, so judgment can find him. Watch his eyes do the traveling. The face is quiet. The pupils run a marathon. Blocking keeps danger close. He's framed by authority on one side and ambition on the other, and the eyeline points to a cost he doesn't want to pay. There's a moment in Pharaoh's court when Sinuhe realizes the price of ambition. No thunder, no symbols, just a man understanding that success can turn you into a stranger. Purdom lets the thought hurt. It's easy to part waters with a miracle. It's harder to part from the person you thought you were. Production gives him honest weight, linen that creases like real cloth, corridors that carry footsteps, air that feels old. The score doesn't rush him. It leans under him, then steps back. Older eyes know the grammar, a straight back, a low voice, and a decision that won't be hurried. If a question can forge a spine, then watch a soldier learn conviction he can't command. Number 9. Robert Taylor as Marcus Vinicius, Quo Vadis, 1951. If you caught this on a Sunday telecast, you remember Rome before the story. Torchlit processions, marble stretching beyond the frame, and a soldier whose Polish could cut glass. Robert Taylor enters like a statue that learned to walk. Straight back, laurel neat, vowels trimmed to a salute. The surprise isn't how commanding he looks. It's how quietly that command begins to bend. What starts as rank turns into responsibility, then into something sterner and stranger, a belief he can't order away. Watch how the film shows that without speeches. Early on, the lens treats him like architecture, eye level or a hair below. As his inner weather changes, the camera simply lingers. Taylor's cadence softens by inches. The man who expects yes begins to pause long enough to hear no, and that pause is where adulthood enters the room. In the arena passages, the crowd roars, but the moment that sticks is the hush inside his face. The instant when spectacle stops amusing him and starts asking him questions. Costume helps. The cape that once signaled victory settles instead of billowing. The laurel stops looking like triumph and starts looking like weight. Even the score plays fair. Brass that used to swagger now yields to strings that sound like thought. He doesn't crumble. He steadies. He doesn't renounce Rome. He decides what Rome should mean when a man looks himself in the mirror. For viewers raised on manners and matinees, that read as growth, pride learning discipline, power learning to listen. If Rome could refine a man until he gleamed, then Greece could mint a figure so physical, the lens itself must bow. Number 8. Steve Reeves as Hercules. Hercules, 1958. Before capes were pixels and gyms were franchises, strength had to convince you with its own shadow. Steve Reeves steps into the frame and the camera lowers and holds. Low angles widen his chest like a city gate. 35 to 50 millimeter lenses keep him true to scale, so shoulders look like promises, not tricks. Sun glances off oiled skin and draws the same lines a sculptor would have cut. He doesn't declaim, he stands, and the pause tells the room to wait. Italian epics of the era are a clean, bright, hard daylight, firm edges, columns stacked like a diagram of power. Reeves uses that brightness to make mass visible. The famous colonnade test isn't about yelling, it's geometry. Weight meets weight. Pillars tremble, dust lifts from capitals, rope fibers twist like veins. Reeves doesn't sell it to us, he sells it to the world inside the film. And because the world gives way, we do too. Dialogue stays spare, so posture and breath carry the argument. The music trails him, not the other way around. What seals his stature isn't only bicep or symmetry, it's calm. He moves like a man who has time, and that steadiness reads as authority. After Hercules, every tunic hero tried on some piece of this grammar. The planted feet, the slow turn, the jaw that says the outcome is already decided. Saturday afternoons filled with his descendants, Makista, Goliath, Ursus, each chasing the quiet certainty Reeves made fashionable. If muscle can move marble and settle a crowd, then conscience can move a man and unsettle a throne. Belief is about to wake on a face trained to command. Number 7, Richard Burton as Marcellus Gallio. The Robe, 1953. Richard Burton enters like Rome carved him. Chin high, vowels clean, the easy certainty of a man trained to be obeyed. What lifts this role into myth isn't thunder. It's the pivot from rank to responsibility. In those first stretches of widescreen, remember how that picture felt wider than the room? Burton doesn't rush to fill it. He lets silence gather. The voice lowers half a step, the eyes lift a fraction, and suddenly, command looks less like power and more like duty measured against conscience. The film gives him tools older viewers know how to read. Torchlight that breathes, stone that holds temperature, corridors that make footsteps count out a decision. The camera stays respectful, near enough to see thought form, far enough to keep him small against columns he once took for granted. Costumes do their share. Early on, laurel and cloak sit like proof. Later, they hang like reminders. You can feel weight move from the shoulders to the voice, from appearance to meaning. The robe itself does the most speaking. Red against slate, it looks heavier than cloth, almost like a verdict you have to carry. When Marcellus touches it, his posture changes by the smallest margin, as if a debt he never tallied, just posted to the ledger. He doesn't dramatize it. He gives the moment room. For those of us who caught this on a Saturday matinee or a Sunday rerun, that patience felt like trust. The film trusting us to notice, and us trusting the man to do the right thing once he noticed it. But that wasn't the whole measure of scale. If conviction can turn a polished officer into a witness, the next man shows how defiance can turn a chained fighter into a standard. Number 6. Kirk Douglas as Spartacus. Spartacus, 1960. Kirk Douglas wears defiance like a uniform. The jaw is a promise. The eyes take attendance. From the first moments, you sense a kind of weather gathering around him, the kind that makes other men stand straighter, whether they want to or not. What lifts this performance isn't shouting. It's the discipline under the anger, the dignity that refuses to look small, even when chained. You can feel the production's honesty in ways our generation still trusts. Armor that looks heavy because it is. Shields that sound like work when they meet. Lines of fighters arranged into patterns you can count. Long lenses pull the ranks together into a wall. And then Douglas steps forward and breaks that wall by being more still than everyone else. He doesn't beg the frame, he obliges it to treat him as the standard other men measure by. Everyone remembers the famous moment, I am Spartacus, but the heartbeat lives in the silences around it. Watch his listening face. That's where the revolt takes shape. He scans ground like a carpenter reading grain, choosing where the cut will go. When he speaks, the sentences are short and square, the voice riding low, so the words feel nailed, not tossed. Pride here isn't vanity, it's stewardship. He carries other people's fear as if it were his own luggage. Quick gut check for my old school crowd. Who feels biggest so far? Taylor's discipline, Reeves's calm, Burton's conscience, or Douglas's backbone? Lock your pick. No edits after the top 3. If that was strength made visible, then listen to conviction made audible next. Command without mercy can hush a room with one look. Number 5, Peter Ustinov as Nero, Quo Vadis, 1951. Some men seize power with steel. Peter Ustinov chills you with softness. His Nero doesn't storm into rooms. He drifts in like perfume, smiling, fingers busy with a ribbon or a grape, voice padded in velvet. That's the trick. He makes terror feel domestic. Orders arrive as whims, not commands. And that childish, meandering tone turns out to be the scariest thing in the picture. You can see courtiers listening for whether. Is the emperor amused, bored, or about to ruin a life for an afternoon's entertainment? Older eyes recognize the craft. Ustinov keeps his gaze just off center, as if the world is a toy he hasn't decided to keep. The vowels purr. The consonants almost apologize. Then the sentence ends, and a city burns. Torchlight on gilt walls tells the rest. The set is enormous. Forums, palaces, processions, but he makes it all feel small, because whim makes everything provisional. When he speaks of art, you hear vanity. When he speaks of mercy, you hear math. He raises stakes by lowering volume. There's a banquet sequence that stays in the spine, lutes and careful laughter. The room breathes while he samples flattery like a sweet, sets it down, and finds a new cruelty, the way a bored child finds a new game. Hands fussy, smile pleased, judgment casual. He doesn't act like a tyrant. He plays at being one, which is worse. Every head at the table keeps time with his mood, because mood here is policy. Ustinov's Nero explains why the heroes need more than swords. Courage isn't louder speech. It's standing still while a smiling man talks you toward a furnace. In that gap between velvet and violence, the film finds its moral horizon. It makes evil legible without glamour, so dignity can have a fair fight. He taught us how to stand. The next man teaches when to bow. Strength must answer with more than muscle. Number 4, Victor Mature as Samson, Samson and Delilah, 1949, plus Demetrius. The Robe, Demetrius and the Gladiators, 1953 to 1954. Victor Mature gives you 2 kinds of weight in 2 rooms. One that shakes architecture, one that steadies a soul. As Samson, he is the old promise of strength. Shoulders like a doorframe, hands that make tools look small, a face that carries both confidence and the worry of a man who knows his gift can turn on him. When he braces those pillars, the miracle isn't only stone giving way, it's the shock on his own face as destiny closes its fist. He sells the cost. You can feel dust in hair and beard, hear timbers complain. He wanted simple victories. The last one won't be simple at all. As Demetrius, Mature trades spectacle for conscience. The arena tunnel is still there. Torches, iron smell, yard-long shadows. But the performance turns inward. This time, the fight is in the eyes. He arrives as a soldier of convenience and leaves as a man under vow. The face that once won crowds learns to read them, then to stop needing them. A single pause before stepping into light tells the story. Rage, remembering mercy. He doesn't sermonize it. He breathes it. Costumes whisper the shift. Leather looks less like armor and more like habit that no longer fits. Even his walk changes. Samson's stride eats distance. Demetrius's stride measures it. The camera holds at a length where you can see temptation press and let go. Strings rise where drums once did, because the crisis has moved from arms to will. Older eyes in the audience know the lesson. Being strong and being good aren't synonyms. And some days you have to choose. If strength can break a temple and conviction can break a habit, Then endurance can break despair. Now meet the man whose rough will keeps going until grace finds it. Number 3, Anthony Quinn as Barabbas. Barabbas, 1961. Anthony Quinn wears survival-like armor. The face is rough-hewn, the eyes stubborn, the body moving as if the ground owed him an answer. Barabbas isn't a polished hero. He's the man who keeps going when belief won't show its face. He turns stubborn will into a kind of prayer, long before the mouth learns any words for it. You can feel the film's weight in places our generation recognizes. Mines that scrape the world's ribs, chains that talk when they pull, snow that bites skin instead of flattering it. Quinn lets all of it register in muscle and breath. He is a creature of grit and hunger, and the camera treats those as credentials, not defects. Long lenses compress crowds into a press of bodies. Then, a close hold finds him alone inside that crush, listening for something he can't yet name. He doesn't play for sympathy, he plays for truth, the way a man looks when hope is a rumor. There's a stretch in the sulfur pits, dim light, fumes rising, that captures his stubborn grace. Every swing of the pick says, "Not finished." Later, in the arena, he moves like a laborer who learned combat the hard way, not a showman. The kills feel reluctant, the pauses honest. Quinn's shoulders carry the ambiguity. Guilt that doesn't know its language yet. Gratitude he doesn't trust. He doesn't leap to revelation. He wears into it like a boot wears into a road. What lingers is how he starts measuring himself against something other than fear. The posture straightens by degrees, breath by breath, as if the spine remembered how to carry more than its own weight. When the story brings him to a final, pared-down choice, he chooses without flourish. The film lets the plainness glow. If endurance can outlast despair and let grace find it, then command can silence a room without lifting a hand. Next, the ruler whose stillness makes even stone listen. Number 2, Yul Brynner as Ramesses II, The 10 Commandments, 1956. Yul Brynner rules by subtraction. He takes away motion, takes away blink, takes away the waste in a sentence, until all that's left is command. The head is shaved to a gleam, the shoulders square to the world, the chin set like a doorstop against doubt. When he speaks, breath and consonant arrive together, clipped clean, and the room tightens its belt. He doesn't fill space, he makes space behave. DeMille's frames feel heavy with bodies and banners, crowds you can count, torches that give off heat, steps that must be climbed. In the middle of that abundance, Brynner plays scarcity. One profile, one measured turn, one glance that treats a human being like arithmetic. The gold headpiece does its glittering work, but the real crown is stillness. He stands like a column that decided to think. There's a decree you can replay without a line. Ramesses holds in profile so the cheekbone becomes a blade. He doesn't raise his voice. He lets the words travel like heat, outward, downward, until fear finishes the sentence. Courtiers do math with their eyes, distance from the throne, distance from danger, because this is a court where whim is law and mood is policy. A pause becomes leverage. A small breath becomes verdict. What makes this role feel god-height isn't just authority. It's confidence to waste nothing. Brynner's Ramesses doesn't strut. He budgets. Smiles are rare coins. Mercy is a luxury. He turns the antagonist into the axis of the film by behaving like the most dependable machine in Egypt. Set a command on top. Get obedience out the bottom. And because he never begs the frame keeps checking him first, as if the room needs calibration. If command without mercy can make stone listen, then purpose with mercy can move mountains. Now meet the man who turns will into endurance and faith into weather. Number 1, Charlton Heston as Moses, The 10 Commandments, 1956, plus Judah Ben-Hur, Ben-Hur, 1959. Charlton Heston carries 2 crowns and wears them differently. As Moses, he stands steady, chin set, robe in the wind, staff held as if it remembers thunder. The power isn't volume, it's gravity. A low angle meets a steady gaze, and the shot holds because he does. He speaks. and the sentence lands like a stone. Rings moving outward, men adjusting before they know why. He doesn't perform holiness, he shoulders it. Stillness does the lifting. In council halls and on the mountain, he lets silence arrive first. The head tips a fraction. Breath stays low. The eyes track distance beyond the set. Costumes and light do their part. Linen with pull, gold catching on edges. But posture is the sermon. Older eyes know the language. When a man means it, he doesn't decorate it. He stands where truth is supposed to be and refuses to move. Then the second crown, Judah Ben-Hur. If Moses is faith as purpose, Ben-Hur is will as endurance. Heston trades staff for reins and lets hardship do the chiseling. The early wrongs, chains, oars, dust that taste like iron, don't shrink him. They temper him. By the chariot race, the spectacle is a bonus. The story is in the face. The camera comes close enough to make grit punctuation. You can read the plan in his eyes. Hold the line, choose the moment, trust the hands. Crowd noise becomes weather. Focus stays stubborn. Practical scale turns both roles into proof. Declarations happen against sets that had to be climbed. Crowds that breathe. Wheels that bite sand. Wide lenses give the world its width. Close holds give the man his measure. Music follows decisions already made. That honesty came through living room glass, the kind that made Saturday nights feel bigger than the room. What binds the two performances is steadiness. As Moses, he enlarges space by refusing to hurry. As Ben-Hur, he narrows it to a task and does not break. He never begs you to admire him. He lives at a scale that teaches the frame how large it ought to be. For those of us who grew up with these pictures, that steadiness felt like a promise. Life can press, and a man can hold. If purpose can become weather, and endurance can turn noise into focus, then we can close with the truth our generation already knows. The biggest special effect is a man who means it. Why these roles endure. If you grew up with curtain calls and TV listings circled in pen, you know why these men still feel taller than the room. The sets were real. The crowds were counted, and the faces carried more weight than the props. That's what we've traced tonight. Doubt that stands its ground, polish that learns to listen, strength that doesn't need noise, conscience that refuses to sit back down, defiance that teaches posture, whim that chills, muscle that yields to mercy, endurance that outlasts weather, command that budgets every breath, and purpose that turns will into destiny. Different roads, same summit, mortals photographed at a scale that made belief feel practical. What lingers isn't trivia, it's temperature. The eye lines that told you who mattered, the blocking that gave a corridor meaning, the silence before a sentence that changed the room. We didn't need computer skies. We needed a man to mean it, and a camera patient enough to let meaning show. Lock your number one if you haven't yet. No edits after the top 3 are argued in the comments. Tell me the moment that first raised the hairs on your arm, a staff in the wind, a chariot wheel biting sand, a decree whispered like a verdict. If this brought the old grandeur back, tap, like, and subscribe so we can keep these Saturdays alive. Next time, we'll take one towering set piece and pull the thread on how they built it. Because the workmanship behind the myth is its own kind of epic.